Hello, welcome to section 3 as we begin to talk about the role of the husband and the role of the wife. And it's my duty to share with you the role of the husband, and my wife will begin to talk about in the other video the role of the wife. But what I want to do, men, is as we begin to understand your role as a husband, I want us to go back for a moment because just like we couldn't understand the purpose of marriage until we understood the purpose of life, we really can't understand our role as a husband until we understand our role as a male and how we are to grow in manhood. God has so chosen us and created us a certain way for a certain function that's universal, whether I'm single or married. And until we really understand that aspect, we can't fully begin to grasp our role as a husband. And so I want us to go back and think for a moment in the book of Genesis. In the book of Genesis, God said, let us make man in our image. But then he said he created them male and female. And those different words, male and female, have different distinctions. Even though man and woman are one, they are different. They are different in essence, and they are different in function and different in distinction. And so I want us to begin to understand that. And so I want us to get a working definition of male because here's what I want you to gather, men. You are born male and you develop in manhood. And the fact that you're born male means that you're different than female, which means you have a different role and responsibility in life apart from female that you take with you whether you are single or married. And so our identity is tied to the fact that we are male. Our function is developed through manhood. And so with that in mind, I want us to explore this together a little bit. And so let's look at a working definition of male together. To understand male, the word used in the Hebrew was the word zakar. And so let's define, if you will, what it means to be male. One who was created by God as a material and immaterial being with the unique DNA, one X chromosome, and the physical distinctive of a penis and testicles for a particular function and purpose in the culture, alongside and distinct from a female and all other creations of God. You were born male. When God created you from the fact of being material and immaterial, and when He gave you the 1X chromosome as far as your makeup, and He gave you the functional organs that you have, that sets you apart to say you are male, which means that is who you are. And then as we discover manhood, that is what you are to do and to develop in. So, men, let me talk to you for a moment. Your identity is not tied to what anyone says about you. It's tied to what God has designed and created you to be. You are male. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, what about those people who may be born with both a penis and a vagina? What about those people who were born with no penis or vagina or had something going on to where you couldn't tell if it was a male or female? Well, you can always do a chromosome test. And the chromosome test dictates whether you are born male or born female. God's plan for you always stands. Even in fallen creation where sin exists and these matters happen, you are still born male or female. And at birth, being male or female, God has given you your identity, which means you have a role to play in society according to being male or female. So, men, I'm talking to you for a moment. 1X chromosome DNA, you're male. And God says, I have set you apart to develop in manhood. So I want you to understand the difference between male and manhood. Male is who you are. You are born male. Manhood is how you begin to develop according to being male. So when people say man up, I always challenge them, do you know what you're saying when you say man up? When you tell a person to be a man, what are you really saying? Because in essence, they're already a man by birth. What we're really talking about is, as a man is who you are, manhood is what you are to develop in. And as you learn to develop in your manhood, you understand the role that God has for you as male is worked out in your manhood, and then you understand better what it means to be a husband. But let's just kind of walk a little bit more through this. So this is the definition of male. Let's talk a little bit now about the definition of manhood. Manhood can be defined as this: to act manly, to have the mindset, the manner, and movement that correspond distinctly to a male in form and function. In 1 Corinthians 16, verse 13, Paul said to the Corinthian church, act like men. He wasn't telling the church to be men, but he used the word androzome as a word that talks about manhood, and one of the elements of manhood is courage. And so what he was saying is, church, I want you as men are to be, which is to have courage. I want you as a church to take that element of manhood, and I want you to have courage. But what that says is, part of the aspect of manhood is having courage. It is having a mindset, manner, and movement that correspond to being a male. And part of the aspects of being a male is that one walks in courage. Let's take a look at that together. Manhood is also tied to men who develop to the fullness of their being in courage, the mental and moral strength to resist opposition, to handle danger, or endure hardship while operating in a mindset, manner, and movement that is distinctly male, glorifying to God and beneficial to others. To have a firmness of mind and will in the face of danger or extreme difficulty while operating in a mindset, manner, and movement that is distinctly male, glorifying to God and beneficial to others. Now, if we understand that, God, in making you male, has given you duties as a man. And I want us to understand those duties, because from there we can begin to grow in seeing how we're to operate. And one of the things we see is that the duties of a male correspond with how he was created from God from the beginning to function. So, if you take a look at Genesis, and it talks about be fruitful and multiply, procreate and subdue the earth, and all of those matters, what we begin to see is that God put Adam in the garden first. Then God gave Adam the responsibility of naming the animals, which is a position of authority. And when woman was born, or when woman was created, he called her woman. He established a position of authority, meaning that immediately he understood her role in his life, and he called her woman and talked about what should happen between them. And as a result, they were to function together as God intended, for subduing the earth, for managing creation, for being fruitful and multiplying. But he had a role set as leader from the beginning, and the wife was to come to be the support. But I want you to understand, as a man, apart from marriage, you have a set responsibility. As male you are born, as manhood, there are things that you are to consider. And let's talk about some of these things. Men are responsible for taking the lead in procreation on earth, giving life through his seed to his wife only, carrying that life to birth so that mankind will reflect the character of God throughout the earth. Now, gentlemen, let me share this with you. So part of your role as a man is to, again, help to fill the earth with other human beings that will reflect the very glory of God. But that's only through marriage. But men, here's what I want you to understand. Biologically, a woman does not produce life. A woman carries life. Biologically, it is your seed from your sperm that creates life. This is why we have to understand that sex, even though it was to be pleasurable, had an even greater joy of bringing intimacy to husband and wife, and also from his seed creating a life that could be birthed that would also bring glory to God. So men, when we don't operate accordingly in that area, we are dishonoring God. But part of your responsibility as a man, part of manhood is procreation with your spouse only. Secondly, men are responsible for taking the lead in subduing the earth. What does that mean? To govern the earth in stewardship, management, control, and to govern the earth, i.e., stewardship, management, control, and order according to the will of God. Men are responsible for taking lead and dominion of the earth. What does that mean? Being a servant leader over creation, resulting in exercising his authority, influence, and strength over creation and all who fall under the leadership for the glory of God and the good of creation. And if we put it together, in essence, men are to procreate with spouse only, govern within the realm of authority, influence, and strength given by God, and lead within the realm of authority, influence, and strength given by God. Now, let me just pull all that together practically. Manhood is setting things in order. That's what manhood is. God made you male, and he has given you leadership in order that through your leadership, through your influence, through your life, you are to set things in order. And you discover that woman, whether married to you or connected to you as a sister in Christ, is to work alongside of you to help maintain the order that's being set. So what does that mean? God had an order of holiness. God had a way in which life was to be handled. You as a leader, when you see things are out of order, you're to come in, set things in order, and those who are around you, as they are following your leadership, you teach them how to walk in that order, and they help to maintain the order that's been set. But it's not just any order, it's the order of God, his standard for life. Gentlemen, that's what manhood is about. Manhood is about setting things in order according to the design and system and will of God. That's manhood. Women are to help support and maintain the order that's to be set, which is God's. That's what you're called to do, man. So watch this. You are born male. That's a God-given thing. And the fact that you're born male sets up your function. You are to develop in manhood. And as you develop in manhood, you are to take all of what God has established, and you, sir, are to walk in a way that says, hey, if this is God's order for things and I need to learn it, then wherever there is chaos, wherever things are out of order, it is my responsibility as a leader to go and set the order according to what God has designed. And he's given me the authority and the position as male to do this. So as you understand that you are born male, and that your manhood is that you walk in courage, and in this courage you are setting things in order, and the woman is to come alongside to help support and help maintain the order that's set. This, sir, is how you begin to really walk in your manhood. Now, understanding that, now we understand what it means to be a husband. But let me stop there, because I want to talk to both men who are single and men who are married. Do you understand, sir, that you cannot really function as a husband until you really embrace your role as a man? I don't care what anyone has said to you. You have one X chromosome. At birth, you were born male. That means that God said you were to be the one to set things in order within the context of life he's given you. And so to set things in order, not just any order, God's order. So if I understand that as a single man, then here's what I start to see about being a husband. I don't stop walking in manhood as I grow in the marriage and becoming a husband. If anything, now I have a specific person in life that God has called me to connect with in order to set a order that keeps for her and for me, but not just any old order. I am to walk with this woman according to the order that God has set for us. And as I see chaos, I'm to make sure that I set things according to the order that he has designed. And from there, she comes alongside and we work together to maintain the order. And where there's a lack of order in her life, my goal is to invest in her in a living and understanding way and begin to set and bring the order that's lost by the power of God as the head of my house. Now, I want you to think about that. But if you don't understand that as a man that's single, you won't get it as a man that's married. And it's not any old order. It's God's order. So let's take a look as we can at the role of a husband. Husbands are to love their wives. But what does that mean? To self-sacrifice for the benefit, provision, welfare of his wife in all aspects of her life. And again, to whom? The member? To his wife. And the manner? Well, he's to do it as Christ loved the church. What's to be his motive for doing this? To help her to become holy, blameless, that she may function according to God's design. What's the magnitude? To death if necessary. And how does this look, men? Considering her interests, concerns, needs, desires, making sure they're taken care of in a way that Christ would do it for the church, relating to her socially, emotionally, and sexually in a manner that benefits her and reflects the character of Christ, compensating for her weaknesses in ways that Christ would do it for the church, leading and guiding her into spiritual maturity, helping her to be all that God would design for her to be in a way that Christ would do it for the church, leading your wife as Christ would lead the church in all aspects of the marriage. Gentlemen, that's setting things in order. That's following in order, setting things in order. That's a man that says, wait a minute, I understand now that manhood is not about me walking around saying, I'm in charge, I'm the man. Manhood is walking around saying, God has an order and God has given me the authority to make sure that we govern ourselves by that order and that things are set in that order, and that if things become chaotic, I am the head to bring order where chaos exists, and God has given me authority as a man that's walking in his manhood, and now as a husband that's walking in this marriage. Do you understand, gentlemen, that your loving, sacrificial relationship with your spouse is all about the order of God being established through your maleness and manhood? Well, what are the implications for us as men? Men must manage the people within the garden God has placed them according to the commands of God. We all, as men, metaphorically, have a garden in which God has put us. And in that garden, we need to follow God's order, set that order, and help to keep it through the responsibilities and the people he's put with us. Men must maintain and manage the possessions within the garden God has placed them according to the commands of God. Men must maintain and manage the property within the garden God has placed them according to the commands of God. Men must disengage from perpetrators that keep them from functioning within their God-given roles as commanded by God. Men must distrust perspectives that keep them from functioning within their God-given roles as commanded by God. Men must deny passions that keep them from functioning within their God-given roles as commanded by God. My brothers, we have a calling. And our calling is first to understand that if you are born male, God has designed you to develop in your manhood. And in your manhood, if you are a husband, you are to take the lead in procreation, knowing that God gave you the ability to give life through the seed. But apart from that, you are to be subduing and managing the earth. And that means that you are to be managing, setting things in order, keeping order of all that God has given you responsibility of, whether you are married or single. You are to see God's order, and you are to understand God's order. You are to live by that order, and then you are to make sure that where there's chaos, you take leadership to set things in order where God has given you the authority and the power to do so. Now you're walking in your manhood when you do that. And then you become a husband, and all you're doing is picking up a wife and making sure that order is coming to her life, to the glory of God and the benefit of her life. See, gentlemen, that's why you can't be self-serving. That's why you can't be selfish. That's why a marriage struggles. Because when a man is not walking according to the order that God set for his maleness and his role as a husband, then he can't be effective in the marriage. And then there's a problem, but the problem is not his wife. The problem is, are you walking? And I can hear some man saying, but I'm walking in that, but she doesn't. Then guess what? You stay faithful and you watch God do what he's going to do. Because maybe God will allow her to stay that way so that you don't do what you do to get what you want and waiting in what you want, but you do what you do to bring glory to God, to fulfill your role as a male and man and as a husband. And that you start to find your satisfaction, not in anticipating the change of your spouse, but being satisfied and fulfilling your role as a man. If you walk with me through this, my challenge to you is, are you understanding that you, sir, are a man? You are to develop in your manhood, setting things in order. And you are a husband, which means God gave you authority. Not to walk around pulling your pants up saying, I'm in charge, but to walk around in love, setting things in order. My challenge to you as we close out this section, make sure that you're spending time reading the section in the book that talks about the role of the husband, and begin to explore this concept of understanding your maleness. And I pray that you'll begin to take your role seriously, knowing that you are a male that is to develop in his manhood, which is setting things in order according to your role and responsibility, and then functioning as a husband doing the same thing with your wife. God bless you, and we'll see you at the next section.